Today I have two very special guests with me. I have Alonzo Pierce, and I also have Bit5. Guys, what's going on? How are you?
How you doing, John?
Great.
Thanks for having us
Yeah.
on your show today.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
thanks for
Thanks.
joining us.
Be better.
So,
Thank you.
look, let's just jump right into it. Obviously you guys have a little bit of a history. How did you guys meet?
Well,
Alonzo, you want to kick that off?
yeah, I'll kick that off. Well, met Robert almost 2 years ago by now. Basically stopped by Bit5ive with Arnaldo Dietrich, who works kind of like as the bridge between the two companies, and we sat in and got to meet Robert and his team, and just saw what he was doing, how his vision was. I mean, he has an outstanding vision, and just basically how thorough he is when he's planning those visions. So I think that basically, just to have the opportunity to meet him, to see that he's a businessman, he's a great family man. He makes you. No, he makes you gravitate towards him and his team. So basically, it was just an awesome opportunity. The first time we met, I wanted to do business with him, and obviously he slowed me down to walk me through the processes so I could learn some things. And although I'm still learning, I felt like his leadership, on what the vision that we had compared to with his supervision was just, second to none. So I'm glad to have met him, glad to be on this journey with him, and glad to present him to you guys.
So, Robert, how did you get into crypto anyway?
Well, so oddly enough, I come from an entertainment background, heavily involved in ownership management, consulting in nightlife for over 25 years. And back in the early 2000s, I was operating one of the world's most famous nightclub venues, and we were getting a lot of traffic from Asia and Europe. And in a couple instances, people were asking to see if we accept Bitcoin to pay their hefty VIP bills. So oddly enough, my controller at the time and I went back and forth on the possibilities of implementing Bitcoin as a payment system way early in the game, which, if you go back, to 2000, 2002, there was just nothing out there. It was just way too preliminary to implement any such system for such a high revenue traffic venue. So, one thing led to the other. We let that slip away, and a couple years later, Bitcoin, was whispered in my ear again, and I went ahead and started mining. Back then it was the little cards, or the I think I go back as early as the S3 maybe. And one thing led to the other. Obviously, I saw that it generated revenue. Started buying more Bitcoin miners, started selling some Bitcoin miners to friends and family, and next thing you know, I realized that I was sitting on a new business, new technology, and a whole new opportunity that no one at the time was really doing. Obviously, we had our hardships back then. There was not a lot of people that really wanted to help you in trying to figure out how to make this all work. I was fortunate enough to partner up with my CTO today, Antonio Oliveros, who was heavily involved in tech, and that's really how it all started. We just started growing as a business, selling miners, hosting miners, and at one point I had the vision of presenting this to the larger players in the game, and that's how we took our company to the next level. After we started expanding on our hardware sales and the hosting side, if you guys could think back a couple years back, maybe about 5 years ago, in Washington State, there was issues with the power companies starting to raise their power costs once you had invested in your infrastructure. Then we were also presented with another issue over in Sweden, in which the power company bumped up our clients' pricing from one day to the other. And I said to myself, there has to be a better way to protect the investors and their assets. And that's when we decided to engineer and design the Pod 5 today. Fast forward from 2011 till today, we continue innovating. We continue coming up with new ways of creating better infrastructure. Now it's larger infrastructure, and it's, in my opinion, I think we're in the most exciting transition that we have seen since we started back in 2011.
So, obviously, look, you've been in the weeds for a while, and I guess the way that crypto's going now, where it's no longer something that they kind of kill off. Um, what we're starting to see more and more is companies kind of jump into this space, right? You'll start to see, pet food companies that say, hey, we're going to do crypto. Well, what does that mean? Oh, we're going to mine it, or we're going to buy it, or we're just going to hold and sit on it. So it's refreshing to have a company involved that, one, has kind of been in it since the beginning, and two, actually understands the fundamentals behind it, because that's what separates you from somebody who says, I'm going to do this and just waste a bunch of money throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks, compared to somebody that says, I've already done this before, here's what we can do with proper funding, and there's a right and a wrong way to do it. Power is a huge issue. I ran one of the largest mining facilities in New York City, mostly because it was being paid for on NYU's dime. But then power costs became a considerable issue for us, where we had to move it out of the city to Brooklyn, and then the grid over there just couldn't support our power needs, so we ended up dismantling it and sending the whole thing to North Carolina. So that's why I love the pods. That's why I love what you guys are doing, and that's why I was really excited to work with you guys and Alonzo, just because you've kind of cracked the code on that.
Yeah, look, and once again, it's been a learning curve. There is no textbook for mining, and John, if you have run or managed operations in the past, it's definitely not an easy thing to do. It's dealing with the miners, dealing with the environment, and dealing with the spaces that we work with. It's a challenge every day, and I think whoever says otherwise, either they've never done it, they've done it in a really small scale, or they're just not saying what they should say, because there's a lot of challenges that come with it. It's a constantly changing in innovation and pretty much everything from A to Z. So the pods really have made it a lot easier for us. It's a lot more efficient. Obviously, it's a lot more cost effective. And in case of an emergency, we could pick up and go. And we will constantly continue with the innovation. Like I said, there's no textbook for this. You basically learn as you go. So the fact that we've been doing this for as long as we have has really given us an opportunity to do what we do, and basically adjust to what we need to adjust to in a more timely manner. But as a company, it is very exciting for us that we are one of the front teams, creating and doing this innovation. There are a couple companies as well that are doing the same, and I give mad props to them for taking the challenge and trying to make Bitcoin and mining a much easier and profitable and efficient solution for companies like ISWH and others.
All right. So, kind of leading into that, and I hate to cut it off with the pod conversation, but we got a couple really good questions from investors, and I just wanted to get your input on it. The first one being, there was a question on the last podcast about the security for the currency that was mined. Do you guys have plans for how you're going to store it? Is it going to be in a cold wallet? Are you guys going to leave it all in an exchange? What are you guys planning to do in order to I guess just secure your already mined crypto?
Well, as a company, we're looking as Bit5ive as a company, we're looking into a bunch of different ways to generate additional income from the currency that's just sitting there. So there's been a lot of new institutions that have come into play now, in which we could hedge our cryptocurrency and actually generate income from it. So these are all things that I will be discussing with Alonzo here in the near future. As far as the storage, it would be either in cold storage, or in actual exchanges. But I think we're going to go above and beyond that and make it a little bit more interesting, and taking advantage of some of these new opportunities that help us hedge and basically increase our crypto instead of just sitting in wallets. And I think that's as much as I could touch on that topic, but let's just say that we're going to get a little bit more creative, and it would be definitely more beneficial now that we have these different opportunities coming into play in the market.
All right. Well, look, you guys got the question that you were asking. So, and honestly, I kind of preferred that to just letting it sit. It's a bit of a waste otherwise. Let's see. Oh, second question was, is there any reason why the JV has elected to mine crypto tokens on their own without membership to a larger and more successful pool?
Yeah, so that I saw that question. I'm not sure where that came from. We will definitely be using a pool. As you know, Bit5ive has a very good relationship with Bitmain, and we actually have the only licensing agreement with Bitmain to sell hardware in Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean. And they have proposed to us to enter into their pool. Obviously, we're not limited to just their particular pools. But we will definitely be using a pool. Now, whether it's Slush Pool, F2 Pool, or any of the other pools that are out there, we'll be making that decision in the next couple of days. But we will definitely be using a pool. There's no doubt about that. With the global hash rate at what it is, there really is no other options at this point but linking up with one of the larger pools in the market.
Yeah, it's not like the beginning days where you could kind of roll your own. You can, but it's a huge risk and pretty much no reward.
It's a huge risk, no reward. About 4 or 5 years ago, you could probably get away with it. As a matter of fact, we were involved in a project in which they create their own pool, but the hash rate, started jumping so drastically that it just wasn't reasonable nor feasible. And you're right. I think we're at a point today. It's just, it's no longer a valid implementation for anybody.
So since we're on the topic of mining and, the pools in general, another question that we had gotten was, so one of the other questions that we had was, what is the time frame from square one to fully functioning and placing a pod?
We're there. So our pods obviously have been placed. Our pods have been energized. We made some tweaks and adjustments in the last couple of weeks. As from a Bit5ive standpoint, we're always making adjustments that better our pods. As far as the miners go, I know shareholders are only worried about when are we mining and when are we hashing, et cetera, et cetera. But as a company, I need to make sure that my partners' assets are protected as best as they can. And, with the pricing of miners in the last couple of weeks and months, and the fact that the actual new generation miners, like the S17s, have been problematic. And I don't know, John, if you've been dealing with the S17s in the past or currently, it has not been the best batch that we've worked with in the past. We've had our hurdles with some of the different models, and the fact that the pricing has skyrocketed. It's my responsibility as a company to make sure that we do what we need to do at the right time. And this is the perfect example of what's just happened in the last 24, 48 hours. Obviously, if this price dip maintains, then we will see more reasonable pricing for some of these miners. So to answer the question, we will start seeing hash at some point next week, leading up to the completion of the first 2 pods that will be fully hashing following next week.
So I do want to touch base about the ASIC issues, but before we do, so what is the hash rate for those pods going to be?
We're going to be running at approximately 20,000 petahash on each, and that's really been the biggest obstacles, bringing in the batch of miners that we can obtain that hash rate. A lot of these miners have been problematic, and it's just been a back and forth in making sure that when we do energize and when we do deploy, we have the best miners in these pods that basically we could run as long as we possibly can. So yeah, we'll be looking at about 40 in total.
All right, perfect. And again, I'm sure some people are going to hear, oh, there's issues with ASIC miners. This is not an uncommon issue. It's just normally, look, it's all supply and demand, right? Normally, they're at least doing some kind of break-in period and testing the equipment. The demand right now is so high that a lot of the times these guys are saying, hey, does it turn on? Does it work? Okay, send it out. And it's not just with the ASIC miners either. We're seeing this all over the industry just because of we have a global chip shortage. We have fabrications that are at 100% capacity, and we're seeing the same thing right now with Intel processors. Some of them have a higher than normal failure rate because they're not going to bin them. If they work, they're going to either cut them down and sell them that way, or they're going to say, hey, you know what, that 2-3% doesn't really matter right now. We need them in the customer's hands. So it's just an unfortunate fact of the weird times that we're in right now.
Yeah, and once again, you know, I think obviously you understand, and a lot of the people that are entering our space and looking at the back end, they really don't understand the back end. And it's just not a matter of ordering, let's say, 280 miners, putting them in a pod, turning them on, and hoping that, you know, that everything, you know, goes the way you want it to go. It just doesn't. So once again, it's our responsibility as a company to make sure that our clients' assets are protected and they make the right investments at the right time and they buy the right hardware. And as you know, and you just mentioned, it hasn't been like that in the last couple of months. And we definitely can't put our partners in a position in which we're mining just to mine. We're going to mine to be profitable. We're going to mine for the long term, and we're going to mine to make sure that, you know, it's done the right way and that everybody's happy. So that's really the goal for the correct outcome.
So, you know, you've made a lot of mentions about your partnerships, and obviously you have a great partnership with Alonzo and with ISWH. My question to you is, how are you guys sourcing these? Because, you know, I've got friends with pretty good connections, and they can't get their hands on anything. So, you know, I know you have a really good relationship with Bitmain. Are you more heavily relying on that, or it's just because you've been in the industry so long that you know have these connections?
Obviously, being in the industry as long as we have does help. Obviously, in these times, it still gets difficult for even ourselves, and that's why everything takes a little longer. Because yes, we can go out there and source miners from you know, XYZ group, but are we sourcing the miners from the right groups? You know, the guys that know the game, the guys that are responsible and are not just trying to make an overnight dime, which the way I call it. You know, I have long-term relationships with some of these groups that I know I can trust. They know what kind of hardware we need to install and bring in due to the kind of clients that we work with. It's just, unfortunately, we're in a time right now in which that's not an easy task. So yeah, there is a benefit of the fact that we've been in the business so long and we deal with outfits and in particular people that know our needs and know what kind of hardware we need. But once again, in this day and age, it's just been tough, and it's just a matter of lining up the right seller with the right hardware that actually works and performs at the level that we need it to perform.
All right. So, another question for you. One that I've been seeing a lot, and one that I'm not sure how much you guys will be able to speak on, but I always like to ask the tricky questions anyway. Um, there's been a lot of rumors about the relationship between Bit5 and ISWH, and we've gotten some comments here or there, and obviously you have a fantastic relationship with Miami, which congratulations, by the way. I know a lot of people that would kill for those kinds of connections. Um,
Thank you.
with all of this being said, where do you see Bit5 in like the next 5 years?
We're doing some big things. Unfortunately, a lot of these topics I really can't touch. But you will be hearing some really exciting stuff as we near the Miami convention in 2 to 3 weeks. But we are ramping up our hosting side rapidly and in a very large scale. Let's just say that our first project will touch the 100 megawatt level. From a pod side, we currently just moved into close to a 40,000 square foot facility in which we'll be producing the next batch of pods that will be hitting the fields in the upcoming months towards August and September. And but once again, I think our biggest and most exciting news will be the fact that we are ramping up our hosting side, and that announcement will come in the upcoming weeks. But I think it's going to be a very big moment for our company, and that's being backed up by even more exciting news, which rolls into a new pod design for altcoins as well. And unfortunately, I think that's as much as I could say on that.
So, speaking about altcoins and kind of seeing some of them are completely ridiculous, but is there any up and coming coin or token that you're excited about?
Man, I'll be honest with you. I'm all in on Ethereum. I think Ethereum is the next big one. A lot of our peers are really backing it, and I'm looking forward to the change upcoming here in the next bit. But I'm a big Ethereum believer, and very excited about it.
So yeah, look, to be honest, I have some Ethereum, and I have some VeChain too. No Bitcoin though. So
and I think it's also going to get exciting here in the next little bit with a lot of these altcoins. As you can see, the numbers that some of these coins are generating are obscene, and it's just mainstream is really catching on to the altcoins lately, and I think that's obviously helping everything else that we do. The Elons of the world and their support for coins like Dogecoin. I think it's exciting. I think it's fun. I think it really helps the mainstream market catch to certain things that they weren't catching before. Before, let's be honest, mainstream only knew about Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum. The fact that I'm sitting down in local diners and the guy next to me is talking about altcoins. I think it's fun and exciting. It's just, from an investor standpoint, I think obviously, there is some danger and you got to tread carefully and be very wise on your investments. But on the other hand, I think it's pretty cool and unique that a lot of people are talking about it and a lot of people are excited about it.
So that leads really well into another question that I had for you was, obviously Elon went from the great creator to the great destroyer for Bitcoin real quick. One of his key complaints, and look, it is a valid criticism, was that there is a ridiculous amount of power that's used to mine cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin. I don't necessarily believe that that's why he was so publicly against it all of a sudden, but now that discussion's kind of out there, that a good chunk of it is being used on non-renewable resources, how do you feel about using more renewable resources for mining in the future? Do you feel that that your pods could help assist with that, since they're almost like pop-up mining facilities?
I think the next decade, power will be the biggest topic. I think it's in responsibility of the manufacturers to continue with innovation and trying to better the consumption of the miners. And I think with a global topic being brought up more and more every day in our industry, I think that's going to happen with time. And then from an infrastructure side, I think companies like myself will be sourcing cleaner power per se. So I once again, I think that'll be the next decade obstacle and issue to overcome in our industry. But once again, as a company, let's just say that we are looking for cleaner sources of power. And I guess that would be a little hint on, where we're going to be and where we're going to be expanding here in the near future.
All right, and to kind of keep the ball rolling on that, and Alonzo, this is the question for you too. So obviously you guys have these pods, and the difficulty rate only goes up over time. When it's no longer cost beneficial to run these miners, what do you guys plan on doing with the hardware? Because again, it goes into a reusability, sustainability conversation of, we have a lot of silicon right now that's being kind of burned on these miners that doesn't have a repurposement. So what are your plans for that?
Well, not sure if you noticed, obviously, that's what we do. We sell miners. And I think the trick to the miners game is buy them right and sell them right. And we've kind of figured out that strategy in the past. And that's what we'll roll it into the future, like for ISWH and making sure that, they pull miners off the racks when it's the right time, and they buy miners when it's the right time. As you know, there's a huge secondary market out there. And we're now most likely going to see some of these S17s come off the racks in the near future, as some of our clients are already racking up the new S19s. So I think it's just a matter of timing. Obviously, difficulty, pricing, and inventory come into play. It's just catching the right time on when it's time to pull miners and set up the new miners.
All right. Alonzo, any input you want to share on that?
Well, I mean, like I say, Robert's leadership and his expertise speaks for itself. I mean, for that question, I mean, that is the best answer as far as racking is concerned with the 17s and the 19s, and knowing when to pull them and knowing when to move on. So again, he's management of the project. So basically, we're following his lead, and I mean that couldn't have been answered any better.
So I just want to give you kudos for a minute, because a lot of people, and I want to be careful how I word it, but a lot of people will kind of say, you know what, I don't need X, Y, or Z, I'll do it myself. And look, maybe you can not so much stumble through, but maybe you can get through it yourself, right? But you make a couple mistakes here or there, or it's not as perfect as if you just hired the right person, the first time. It takes a good leader to go out and say, you know what, I need somebody that's already an expert on this, and it looks like you found it. I mean, seriously, congratulations, because I think you did what 98% of people in this space failed to do, which is, it's deceptively easy. People look at it and go, I could do that, that's fine, and then they're sitting on 60, 70 miners, and they don't know what the hell's going on. Everything's overheating. Right. They're not turning on. They're defaulted into somebody else's pool. Or this was a big problem when mining first started getting popular again. Was people were downloading these the operating system, and they came with a they came with a wallet. Excuse me. They came with a wallet already embedded in the system. So they're mining, and they're like, my wallet's not going up. What's going on? Well, you actually had to read the config file in the README where it said, you have to change this here, otherwise you're not going to get anything.
Right. So, John, unfortunately, again, I wasn't around back then, but what I easily come to know in projects in ISW, the holding company, is that you have to die to yourself first and know that you don't know it all. And just because you want to do it and you think you know how, there's someone who took it a step, several steps further than you. So basically, you line up your front line, and you get out in front with them as well, wherever you become handy, that's where you get in and you fit in. So basically, it's I'm learning. I'm in school. School is in session, and so it's easy for me to die to myself because I want a successful project for not only the shareholders, but for the past shareholders to come, and then internal, those who are working the project. So like, again, when I first met Robert, it was just easy to know. Not only did he know the industry a lot more than I did, it's just that he really did know the industry. You know what I mean? So that's commendable, and you're right. I mean, we fell on a gold mine with the expertise and the track record that he has and Bit5ive has, and the plans in the future that they have for themselves are phenomenal. I mean, together, once we truly start the hashing and the process, start next week, I mean, we couldn't ask for a better opportunity here right now with Bit5ive.
So, where do you guys? I guess what's the timeline for you guys now? Because obviously, look, things change. We can't give a definitive timeline because the world could end tomorrow. Nothing's promised, right? But where do you guys think that we're at?
Well, like I said, I think next week is a real exciting week. We're really looking forward to it. And then as we get into the Bitcoin convention in Miami, June 3rd and June 4th, I think it's, that's the time in which we're going to be hearing a lot of the new exciting stuff that we've been working on and we're going to be launching. So the next upcoming weeks will be very exciting for our companies.
Yes.
So, what do you foresee being a major challenge or hurdle? Is there any one particular thing where you're like, we kind of have to watch for this, but other than that, it's smooth sailing?
Well, there will be a lot of additional hash coming up here in the near future. As you know, some of these larger companies have made large commitments for large amounts of miners. So I think it's going to get pretty interesting on where our hash rate levels are going. I also think a lot of the smaller players will be weeding out. Unfortunately, it's becoming very costly. And as you mentioned, it's not easy. So, we're getting constant calls about the guy with 50, 100 miners that's really just stuck in limbo. They've invested, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they really got nowhere to go with this right now. So I think the hash rate's going to be a big question mark, and obviously the price. Obviously, this is a correction that needed to happen. It's not the end of the world by all means. So I think the upcoming months, depending on price, depending on difficulty level, can lay the outlines for the next 2 years.
So now, and if you can't answer, no worries. But what does the price need to be around in order for it to still be profitable for you guys?
I don't have that math with me right now, but I think we could even scoop down to the low 20s, to be honest with you, mid 20s, if I'm not mistaken. I have to do that calculation, but I don't have it with me right now. But once again, we put ourselves in
that on your whiteboard. I think that those numbers were in that ballpark. So
yeah, and once again, I think we've put ourselves and ISWH in a position as far as our sourcing of low power cost. And that's where you win the game, on your power cost. And obviously the management, if you can't manage these things and do the best to keep them up as much as you can, then, obviously that affects the underlying number.
I think the one thing was, the dynamic of consummating, phases where when we first joined forces, it was about the completion of projects before we got to the big table. And there are larger plans in our mentals, but obviously right now we're focused on phasing out the phases that we have to accomplish to get to that bigger table. So I think that's the one thing that just want to reiterate, because everybody jumped to a merger where we're phasing out right now, and when we get to that point, and it's justifiable for the shareholders, then that's that conversation. It's always been let's phase out. Let's see where this goes. I mean, the JV is, obviously that's a good start. Even at this juncture, but right now, I mean, Robert's our leader. He's leading the charge, and obviously he's going to send us in the right direction, because it's that much more beneficial for his reputation as well. To build companies and grow them out, and and to do that. So I don't know. I mean, we don't have to go that route, but if someone comes back and asks you that question, that may just be something that you could just clear up, or if it's a past question, not anymore, then that's just what it is.
So,
John, let's just say that the people are looking into the short future. I think our long play is way more exciting than what we are working on today. And I think everybody is just looking at the short term, but we're really working on the long term. And I think that's what's going to add value to what we're doing. And it's going to definitely be impactful, and it's definitely going to, display some serious, commitment from ISWH in the near future.
Look, I think that's part of the reason that this whole relationship works, right? Is because you have Alonzo, who's a great quarterback, and is kind of running this in a good direction, but he knows to listen to his team.
Yeah, look, and John, I think from the Bit5ive standpoint, I think we're at a point right now, and I everything I want to do is big. We've been in the game over 10 years now, so nothing we're going to do is small, and a lot of these things take time. They take time, they take a lot of effort, and they take funding. So it doesn't happen overnight. But let's just say that we're working on bigger things than what people think that we're currently doing. So once again, I'm very excited for the long term, and the public will see that in the short term, in the next upcoming weeks.
All right. Look, honestly, I think this was perfect. If you guys want, we can kind of wrap it here. I don't want to keep it too long. I think we actually did a good job making everything pretty concise. Is there anything you guys want to add before we wrap it?
No, actually, what I wanted to propose to you is, because a lot of these companies really, they talk, but there's really not a lot to show. I would love to maybe have you come down to our facility here in the next couple weeks, and maybe we could do a live podcast from there if you're up to it. But there you'll be able to see, what we're doing on our end as far as the manufacturing and so forth. And then, a little later, we could probably even come and do one of these on our site, our future site, which I think nobody's really done that before. So, I'll lay that out there, and if you feel comfortable doing that, I'll be more than happy to accommodate it.
Yeah, look, I have no problem with that. My one caveat being, you got to let me do it with an Iron Man helmet on.
Yeah, that's not. You can do whatever you want, man.
All right, cool. So, dude, I'm totally down with that. AP, you gotta be there too, man. We'll dress up together.
No, I think that's the look.
So yeah, no, look, I'd absolutely love to. I was planning on coming out anyway, so I think that lines up perfectly.
Sounds good, man. Look, I appreciate you taking the time to have us on, and whenever you need us on them again, just feel free. We'll be more than happy to do it.
Yeah. You have our direct lines. Just ping us.
I appreciate it. Actually, last question, super quick. Mayor of Miami, how the hell did you pull that off?
So Mayor of Miami's done a great job. We have friends in common, and he's doing really exciting stuff for our industry. Not only for the city, but also for the industry. on every angle. So, I commend him and what he's doing and his efforts. I'm also working with the second city of Miami Lakes and Mayor Manny Sid. And he's also making a big move on the crypto side as well. As a matter of fact, they just actually implemented crypto as a form of payment for our taxes and other city costs. So once again, it's just a very exciting moment in our industry. The fact that you got mayors on CNBC and CNN, talking about crypto and their cities and the technology. So it's exciting, man, and I'm really looking forward to the upcoming years.
Dude, it is so crazy to see how it went from being everybody saying it was internet funny money to you can pay your taxes with this in like in such a short span. It's insane.
John, 6, 7, even 5 years ago, I would sit in front of people and they thought I was crazy. And now I can't keep up with Zooms and meetings and calls and it's once again it's just real funny how this all has happened. And I give credit to the other industry leaders and companies that have put their money where their mouth is, have stuck through the bad, which there's been many bad, and luckily and fortunately for those that stuck it through, we're here today and now reaping the benefits.
I love it. I love it. I love what you guys are doing, and I love the fact that you guys are really kind of aiming for long term. I mean, look, 10 years in the crypto space is already long term. But it sounds like you guys are already planning out the next 5-10 years in the future. So, I mean, I have to give you mass props on that because everybody's chasing right now, and you guys have just been perfectly positioned the whole time.
Thank you. And once again, the mentality needs to change. It's not a short term; it's a long term play, and that's what we're going for.
Guys, thank you so much. Guys, everybody listening, thank you for joining us. Like I said, my name is John with Waypoint. This has been Alonzo of ISWH and Bit5ive.